Yeah, I think probably the four of us that were just doing red ball training have probably got a little bit more practice for what we're going to get in terms of test match cricket, training during the day, getting used to the kind of heat and everything. Obviously, I think the girls that have played the T20 stuff will be, ready to go, but they've just got to flick that focus a lot quicker. But we do a lot of work back in England to make sure we can put up with the conditions. So far, the morning doesn't seem too hot. I know I'm saying that as quite a English girl, but hopefully it won't be too hot for us. But it's been nice so far to get out and practice here in Mumbai. No, I think I took a lot of learning from that innings. I think it kind of unlocked something in terms of how I want to play red ball cricket and actually play a long innings across a couple of days. And I think in particular how we want to play women's test cricket. Lots of learnings from that. I think everybody knows, and my dad reminds me every time, you start again on naught. So I'm not going to be thinking I'm on 208 and I'm just continuing on, but I think it gave me a lot of confidence knowing that I can do it and that I've just got to try and find a way to get somewhere close to that again, and the performance and the runs will take care of itself. I think as a squad we tend to just focus on ourselves anyway, so we're feeling pretty happy in how we want to play our red ball cricket, what our method is, and kind of what our ethos is around it. So we'll be sticking to that and looking at ourselves. I think obviously having had regular test matches, that has helped us get to this point. But again, India have probably played more in the last 2-3 years than they have done in the last 10 years. So I'm sure they've got their own learnings and probably a little bit more knowledge of the surface here at DY Patel, having played here in the WPL or at other times. So I guess it's pretty even going in there. I love Test cricket. I think every single one of us in the dressing room would love to play more Test cricket, and I almost am interested to see how India cope doing our Test match and then the Australia Test match straight after. So I think if that goes well, then I could see in future doing 2 Test, 3 Test series against the top nations, which I think would be amazing. So I think it should be good to play more Tests. I don't think it's quite the right time, if I'm honest. I think at the moment there's probably only 3 or 4 nations that are playing Test match cricket regularly, and potentially only 3 or 4 governing bodies that can afford to host women's Test cricket. And I think it would have to be a very big investment from the ICC that I don't think they're probably willing to put into. I think they're still trying to develop the T20 game across the globe. I think the way you've seen like Thailand and other countries come into T20 cricket, I think that probably should stay as a focus. However, I would love to see more nations do maybe like a multi-format series like we do in the Ashes. So say India come over and we do Test match, ODI and T20s, and then overall winner from that, and do the same with Sri Lanka, South Africa, New Zealand, all those teams, and build it from there. But one day I would love to see a World Test Championship, but at the moment I don't think it would be fair when, say, India, Australia and England have played a lot of tests in the last 4 years, and other teams like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, New Zealand have not played any Test cricket in the last 15 years. I think the imbalance is still there. We need to build it from the ground up a little bit longer, and then definitely have many tests. We actually only trained at the Vankidi once as a red ball squad. The T20 girls were there. We were actually at the Hindu Gymkhana down the road. It was a little bit different, I think, to the nets out here. So far, I think I've enjoyed batting on the practice wickets. I think it's got a little bit in it for the bowlers, but also if you apply your mindset with the bat, then I think there's a lot of runs to be scored as well. So I think it will be similar out there, and really looking forward to having a go on the first few days with the bat. I don't think there are Test specialists in women's cricket really. Like all of us still play 50-over cricket. Those of us that have not been outside the T20 squad, we still play white ball cricket. So I think there is no such thing as a Test specialist. I would say going into this Test, those of us that have been doing red ball cricket for the last 10 days are maybe more mentally prepared than those that have been doing the T20 stuff, and that goes for the Indian girls that are outside the T20 squad as well. However, the best players can play all formats and switch their mindsets very quickly. So I'm sure no one's going to. They're all going to be on song with their mindsets going into the game. I think before that 5-day test, I would have told you yes, absolutely every test needs to be 5 days. However, I've played most of my test matches in England, and on the 4 days we normally have at least one session ruin for rain. So maybe here, I think if we get good weather, there could still be a result. I feel like there was no chance of a draw at Trent Bridge. However, I think both teams wanted to play for a result, and I think coming in here, I think we'll be trying to push for a result as well, trying to play a brand of Test cricket that guarantees us more Test cricket in the future. I think, probably 5 years ago, after every Test match, it was like, do they deserve another Test as women's cricketers? Whereas now it's how much Test cricket do we want? So it's great that we've changed that narrative, and that's come from the way teams have played the game. And hopefully this Test against India will be no different in the way both teams play women's Test cricket. I certainly think probably as a group of players, you feel a little bit more anxious around a Test match week, just because it is so novel. I think you've got the likes of myself, Heather Knight, Nat Siver-Brunt. We've been playing international cricket for 12, 13, 14 years, and we haven't even played that many Tests. We've played 10, 11. I think maybe Heather's got 14 now. But so if you think of that in terms of white ball cricket, that's your first year. So I think, of course, there's more nerves. I think that's because we haven't mastered it. We haven't had the opportunity to master it. And then I think, you look at someone who's the same age as me, Danny Wyatt. She made her debut at Trent Bridge at 32. So I think that's where that comes from. You're constantly a young player in Test cricket, no matter how old your body feels. You're still very much a young player. In the men's game, 10 Tests is not even a career. That's a start. I think for us, it probably doesn't look the same as the men's game, but the mindset is very similar in terms of we want to move the game forward at all times and be putting bowlers under pressure, batters under pressure, and having that wicket-taking mindset. Potentially won't have quite as funky fields as Ben Stokes in the Ashes when he was at silly point to a seamer, but I think at the same time we want to try and inspire the next generation of female cricketers, not just in England but across the world. So we'll be playing a way of cricket that hopefully makes people want to watch. I think for me, I would probably like how the A tour, the England A, India A tour, coincided with the T20s. I think potentially we could have had an opportunity to do a 3-day game there with England A, India A, and we could opt in as the Test-only players if we wanted to get more practice and have a practice match. I think particularly, say, players that either haven't played a Test yet or have only played a few, I think it would have been a great opportunity for them to play that. I think we do ask a lot of young players to come in having never played a multi-day game and then just perform. So I think it probably would have been in a development A style game would have been the best opportunity. For myself, I came straight from the Women's Big Bash with a number of players, so it probably would have been a bit too much in the space of time. I think the Wankhede is a lovely stadium. I played there in 2019, but doesn't this one hold more people? So you never know, we'll sell it out. But no, I think for me, I think this looks a beautiful facility. I've heard the wicket is really good and potentially good for batting, so I think I'm not too worried about it. I think one day I would love to play a Test match at an iconic ground in Mumbai, but I think this one looks just as good, really. Yeah, absolutely. I think Lauren Filer was, she was a crowd favourite at Trent Bridge. Every time she came on, it was just like the crowd came alive. But secondly, I think she really lit it up with her pace and her aggression. And I think at times out here we're going to need that, someone to really kind of rattle the batters. And also I think she's kind of lost that. She came in under the radar. I think people wouldn't have thought she was going to play or would be selected. Probably hadn't really thought about her too much, and now everyone's had a look. So I think it's going to be a bit tougher for her coming into this one, but at the same time, she's bowled at me for a week and a half, and I can tell you she's bowling fast. So I'm really looking forward to see how she goes against the Indian players. Oh, sorry, of course. I think, Sophie just keeps getting better and better. I think the fact for me that, 3 months ago she dislocated her shoulder and she's back bowling the way she did in the T20s is an absolute testament to her as a player, and the way she went about it in that Test match. A couple of times Heather said, do you want a break? And she was like, absolutely not, give me the ball. So we're going to need that out here for definite. I think, there's lots of good spinners in the world. India have certainly got some in their team, but there is none like Sophie Ecclestone. She can either keep it tight the entire time for a whole session at one end, or she can really attack when the ball starts turning. So to have someone like her in our team, I think, is absolutely incredible, and she lifts the entire bowling attack. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how she goes. The fan following, I think it's really good. I think it was good that we got the broadcast deals so that people could watch it back home. We've had a few family members come out, so we always have good support on the road. But I think on the whole it's been really positive. Kind of from the summer, we got a lot of sellouts in the Ashes and into the 100. The crowds were just, every week was a record crowd. So I feel like people are really taking notice of women's cricket in England. So it's great to see, and hopefully they'll be right behind us for the Test as well. I don't think there's been too much difference really. I think the big thing is not coming in with any preconceived ideas of how the pitch is going to play, or kind of what you think a Test match in India might look like. Actually, so far we've found the wickets have played really nicely, and there's a bit in it for bowlers and batters. So not thinking that you got to work on playing spin too much. I think it's just been it's been a really good preparation period, and we've got it right, ready to go really. In the red ball only setup, I was with 3 bowlers, so I did an awful lot of batting and they did an awful lot of bowling. But we've been really lucky. We've had a lot of net bowlers come in, and lots of good spinners that we've got to face. So I brought my half bat over, just like a little bit thinner to make sure I'm being really precise. But on the whole, just for me, it's just about having really good footwork and trying to keep as much energy in my feet and my movements as possible, and then whether it turns or not kind of doesn't make as much difference. Yeah, definitely, although I think talking about something that happened 6 months ago can't really count as form, but certainly it's nice to know that was your last Test match, and you go in with a lot of confidence. Yeah, I think it certainly helps. Obviously our head coach, John Lewis, is coach of the UP Warriors, so he's played here, he knows the conditions. So I think that helps him kind of with selection and giving us a lot of confidence on what the conditions might look like, particularly on day 1 and day 2, and just adapting from there. So certainly a lot of talk about. And then I think the good thing is a lot of the girls know the good places to eat near the hotel as well, so that's always good. I just think it's brilliant for the game, and I think it's not just women's cricket. I think in England you can see women's football, women's rugby really starting to take centre stage, and kind of long overdue in some respects, but it's great to see, and people are no longer kind of seeing it as a tag on to the men. They're seeing it as a show in its own right. I think particularly with the Ashes, obviously running the campaign alongside the men's, but all of our games being standalone. I think you saw that the appetite for the game is just growing and growing, and I think there's nothing better for me. Obviously, playing women's cricket, you're going to have young girls come along, but actually when you see like teenage boys in a group of 6 or 7 and they've chosen to come off their own back, you just think that's so incredible, because when they're fathers, their daughters are going to get the same opportunity as their sons, and I absolutely love it when you see the demographic of the crowd. It's not just parents with their daughters, it's pretty 50-50, and just people genuinely loving the game. I think having gone to all 3 games, and particularly the 2 games over the weekend, having the Wankhede pretty much full, I think was actually incredible atmosphere, and something that I think was brilliant. So if it had to be free tickets for people to come in, then for me I think it was worth it. I don't know the ins and outs, but from the grapevine you hear that what's driving the kind of money in women's cricket at the moment is broadcast deals. So the big one for the series is that it's on TV in India, in England, and the broadcast deals are being sold. Ticket sales probably are only a percentage of that, even in England. So I think as long as we're pushing broadcast deals and getting the game globally on TV, I think that's the most important thing. And for me as a player, having lots of people watching and creating that atmosphere, and say over here it's going to be against us the entire time, but if we have a good session and the crowd goes quiet, I think for me as a player that's what makes you feel alive. So if that means they're getting a free ticket to watch hopefully an amazing Test match, then I don't mind at all. I'd rather that than kind of a pretty empty stadium of 40,000, to be honest. I think this year in our the domestic Women's Super League in football, they're back to more of the bigger stadiums, and you're seeing then record crowds because of it, because so our series against Sri Lanka at the end of the season was back to the smaller grounds in England, and we did sell them out, but that's only kind of 2,500, 5,000 people, as opposed to like the bigger grounds. So I think giving us the opportunity to play on the bigger venues is a big one, because then it does show, you know, what the market is. If we're selling out 5,000 capacity grounds, then, you know, there's capacity for more, so let's see how much more. And I think the other one is kind of telling stories of the individual. I think the Lionesses girls are incredibly marketable now, and you know, you see them on the cover of Vogue or GQ or whatever, and they're being marketed, and they're being, you know, their actual stories are being sold, not just their cricket, their football. So I think almost, getting people to connect with the actual players as people, I think is quite a big one to grow the game. Because I think people now, you know, if you support cricket, you probably support 10 teams. Whereas I think people start to follow individual players more and more as there's more and more leagues. So that's, I think, what's going to grow things in the future. I think obviously India's quite different to England. I think it's quite nice that we're starting early at 9:30. The temperature's kind of nice, it builds into the day, and then training in the afternoon is certainly a lot hotter. And also I guess the thing for us is we don't necessarily know how the pitch is going to deteriorate, because it is so hot. It will deteriorate at some point, but it's just trying to work out at what point that's happening, and then shift what we're doing from that. I think in Test cricket, the good thing is you have time to work out conditions. You don't, in T20 cricket, that's the tough bit, is adapting incredibly quickly and rolling with it. Whereas Test match cricket, you can take that time, work out what's happening, and then move on from there. So really looking forward to it.